When my mind drifts into thoughts about The Sopranos, I tend to think about one scene, and it's probably not the scene you think. My favorite scenes of the show are the ones where Tony and Melfi talk, or when Adriana is driven into the woods for the last time, or when Tony and Carmela fight at Whitecaps, or that infamous last scene of the whole show, but none of those are what come to mind. Instead, I think of a scene near the end of the show's fourth season, wherein the Soprano family is having a discussion over dinner. Meadow, Tony and Carmela's oldest child, has brought her boyfriend, Finn, and a few of their friends are there. As the dinner progresses, they enter into a discussion about Herman Melville's Billy Budd. This is because AJ, Meadow's younger brother, is reading it for school. Smart, eloquent, and thoughtful, the kids start talking about the gay subtext in the book, which outrages Carmela, who refuses to see that subtext. Even when they bring up heavily coded passages, Carmela not only refuses to accept that reading, but she's just absolutely apoplectic at the idea. In the context of Season 4 of The Sopranos, the focus is on Carmela, who has been heavily dissatisfied. In Season 4, she kinda sorta has an affair with one of Tony's men, Furio. They've been flirting, and their passion nearly becomes romantic, even though they both know they shouldn't do this. Furio nearly kills Tony, but eventually he decides that he can't find it within himself to betray his boss, so he leaves Carmela and goes back to Italy. The dissatisfaction in their marriage culminates when they fight in the Season 4 finale, Whitecaps, which is the episode immediately after the episode with the dinner scene. Do I feel bad for Carmela? Yes, in the way that I feel bad for anyone sucked into the orbit of anti-heroes. That said, Carmela is one of the least sympathetic characters who fits the anti-hero's wife archetype. This is because of a lot of things, but it's mostly because she chose this life for herself. No one forced it on her. Betty Draper in Mad Men operates according to the values instilled in her by her mother and by her mother's society. She was raised to be admired by men, so that's what she values. She marries a rich, handsome advertising executive, and she has 3 beautiful kids with him. She fulfills this feminine ideal, and the result is her becoming extremely dissatisfied. She doesn't have her own life. She doesn't have agency. Skylar White, in Breaking Bad, attracts more scorn, I believe, than she really deserves. While she is not perfect, she is a realist who is trying her damnedest to navigate through a very difficult and stressful situation. Unlike Walt, who claims to want to provide for his family, Skylar actually wants to try and protect her family, to try and keep it stable, even sacrificing her own wants in order to do so. Carmela, conversely, knew exactly what she was doing when she married Tony. She knew exactly who he was. She knew exactly what the life of a mobster's wife entailed, and yet she chose that life because she couldn't resist the glamour and the material wealth. When I think about this Billy Budd scene, Bus, I'm not thinking about Carmela, not really. I'm thinking about Meadow. Though quiet, she's assertive. She's not used to having her voice heard and listened to, but she has become more confident in resisting Carmela's reactionary, anti-intellectual prattling. Meadow references the comments made about Billy Budd by a lecturer at Columbia, a prestigious and successful university. Meadow is smart, clever, and thoughtful, even when Tony attempts to hide his identity as a mobster from her in the beginning of the show. Meadow discovers it. Unlike Carmela, she can form her own views. She's sophisticated and urbane. Of all the characters in this show, she's the one with the brain and the cunning to establish a life and an existence for herself outside the confines of her family and the mafia. What she doesn't have, though, is the heart. Of all the great TV dramas of the 2000s, The Sopranos is the one that's most pessimistic about human nature. Not a lot of these prestige shows are necessarily bright and cheery, but The Sopranos is set apart. Mad Men has faith in change and progressivism. And something like Breaking Bad believes a man like Jesse can still save his soul, even though Walter White has basically sold his soul to the devil for fame and glory and renown. The Wire is extremely pessimistic about the prospect of widespread systematic change, but it still believes that people can commonly change, that it's not so hard, that people can liberate themselves from the system, even if the system is still very hard to change. The Sopranos, however, is much more pessimistic. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's nihilistic. I wouldn't say it believes that people absolutely can't change, but it believes they usually don't. When given the opportunity to change, they typically turn that opportunity down because taking hold of it and doing what must be done in order to change oneself is much harder than just continuing to go along the life one is already on. Positive change, in The Sopranos' view, requires acting against what is in one's practical self-interest, demonstrating a Kantian will to do what is right regardless of the consequences of these actions. Tony can't do this, neither can Carmela, and neither can AJ. None of this should especially surprise us. AJ is not very smart, and he is very easily tempted. When we approach the end of The Sopranos and AJ finally comes somewhat close to changing and realizing the depths of materialistic misery in his life, Carmela and Tony simply shower him with affection and praise and material goodness, and AJ, easily distracted, abandons his desire to fundamentally change and become a better person. Carmela is too imprisoned by her vices to actually change for the better. Now, Tony probably comes the closest of all these characters to real lasting change. His therapy sessions do help. Tony is not beyond salvation. He knows how to become a better person. But when he has to make decisions that come at the expense of wealth and power, he can't do it. He can make the easy choices, and he can know the choices that need to be made, but he can't make the hard choices. All of this is easy to mock if you are, like me, relatively sophisticated and well-educated, as you most likely are if you're the kind of person who's watching video essays on The Sopranos. Meadow, however, is the show's clever way of asserting that thoughtfulness and cleverness and clear-sightedness are not enough. Meadow is smart enough to know logically the trap she's in, but she can't bring herself to get out of that trap. Meadow is more than smart enough to expose her mother's ignorance about classic literature, but without the passion and the desire to change, her intelligence goes toward rationalizing her family and the mafia as a whole. True, she doesn't threaten people with violence, unlike Tony, but she relates her family's violent tendencies to historical oppression back in Italy when authority was corrupt and the law could not be trusted, thus making violence necessary. Now, whether she has a point about this isn't important. What's important is that all her fancy education does not help free her from her family's influence. Rather, it just helps her gloss over the blood-soaked parts of that influence by using fancy words. There is a bit of Dostoevsky in this. Becoming refined and intellectual and ostensibly logical does not help one solve real moral quandaries. Smarts is no replacement for having a strong moral compass. Hiding beneath ostensibly rational justifications, there are stranger and sadder reasons why people decide to make the choices that they do. Raskolnikov justifies the murder of a pawnbroker and robbing her by saying that he's broke and that he really needs fate to go his way. But he ends up not even using the money from the woman he robs and kills, demonstrating that it was never really about money. It was about him testing himself and seeing if he was one of these world historic men like Napoleon or Julius Caesar who can make their own rules and values and ideals in a Nietzschean way and step over the morality of lesser authorities. And through his actions, Raskolnikov learns he isn't one of those men. Meadow believes that her family is discriminated against by outsiders. She tries to rationalize this. But in reality, she simply wants the wealth and support being a soprano brings, while not having to deal with the guilty conscience of being a part of a mafia family. In the end, she abandons her old dreams of wanting to become a doctor and helping children. Even when she decides to become a lawyer, she starts off wanting to do good. She starts off wanting to help the disenfranchised. But temptation calls, and by the end of the show, Meadow has left that righteous path, and instead she has been engaged to the son of one of Tony's associates. And she is ready and willing to become a lawyer for the mob. I know a lot of people hate Meadow. I don't. I think her story is tragic. Unlike the others, she had a real chance to escape. She had the smarts, she had the cunning, but escaping would have required willpower and determination that Meadow quite simply does not possess. In the end, she's just another soprano, and that's probably the saddest fate she could have succumbed to. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Let me know if you want to see more videos on The Sopranos. This is an interesting show, and I like talking about something different for a change. It's a really challenging, thoughtful show about America in the 21st century, where old dreams have just given way to decay and fear. Really thoughtful show. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.